So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Before we get started with our presentation, I just am going to give you a little bit of an orientation to GoToWebinar. You should see, depending on the version, whether you're joining on an app through a mobile device or if you're on your computer, things may look a little bit different, but you should be able to see a control panel, probably over to your right, maybe in a different location. There's a little orange arrow, and if you click on that, it can open or close the control panel for you. As you look at that control panel, you will be able to see that there is a mute button. It's a red circle with a, right now it should be a red circle with a microphone. That means that you are currently muted. Later on in the presentation, if we have enough time for questions and you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand and we will unmute you. The raise hand button is below the microphone button or the mute button. You can see that as well. It's just a little hand with a green arrow on it. So that's how you'll be able to let us know that you would like to ask a question. If we have handouts available, they will be available in a different panel down below the audio panel that you can see here. And finally, some of you have already found the questions box. So we will be using that questions box to sometimes answer some questions that we have in our presentation. But if at any point during the presentation you have other questions you would like us to ask, please go ahead and put those in as soon as you have that question. We will be reviewing those and answering as many of them as we can as we go through the presentation and towards the end. So we do have a couple people who will be monitoring those questions as we go. And if you have any questions about how to use GoToWebinar, you can put those in the question box as well, and we will answer that as we go. All right, so again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pass it over to Danielle, who will introduce us this evening.
Perfect. Thank you, Glenn. Good evening. My name is Danielle Sims. I'm the Environmental Justice Program Manager here at Virginia DEQ's Central Office. One of our office's initiatives this year is to share more information with the public about DEQ programs and resources available across the Commonwealth. This virtual education series will focus on doing just that, highlighting DEQ programs and resources available to you. You can visit deq.virginia.gov/edu series for more information about future webinars we'll be holding later this year. Whether you're watching, listening live, or watching us as a recording, thank you for taking the time out of your day to learn more about water quality and water protection. Today, May Fernari, our Piedmont Environmental Justice Coordinator, and Grace Holmes, our Tidewater Environmental Justice Coordinator, will be moderating the questions box and our Q&A period at the end of the presentation if there is time. Kate Miller, our Blue Ridge Southwest and Valley Environmental Justice Coordinator, will be our speaker for this webinar, who will guide you through the basics of clean water laws and regulations, water quality standards, water quality monitoring, and how we can all work together to protect and improve Virginia's waters. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Kate.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening and welcome again. I'm Kate Miller, one of the DEQ's 4 regional environmental justice coordinators. We really appreciate everyone taking time to attend this webinar today. We know everyone has very busy schedules, so with that, we'll go ahead and get jumped right into our presentation. Today, as Danielle mentioned, we'll be providing you with a very broad overview of water quality that includes an introduction to DEQ, who we are and what we do. And then since DEQ is part of the state government and we love our acronyms, we will be going through a couple of acronyms and definitions that you'll be seeing throughout this webinar. And then next we'll dive right into water quality. That is, what is water quality and why it matters. After that, we'll get into what DEQ does to protect and enhance water quality by discussing water quality monitoring, what DEQ does with water quality data from monitoring efforts, the water quality data assessments, and how that data informs DEQ's water quality improvement planning and implementation projects. From there, we'll move on to how you can also protect water quality throughout the Commonwealth, discussing ways to make a difference and how to get involved in water quality monitoring for those interested. Finally, we'll wrap things up by taking questions after the slide presentation concludes, and we'll also have a couple of breaks during the presentation just to catch everybody up and make sure we're all on the same slide and everything. And then as a quick note, we do want to add that we won't be going into any details about specific facilities, cases, or projects. If you do have any questions about a specific issue, please feel free to let us know and we will follow up with you and get you in contact with someone at DEQ who would be the ideal person to discuss that concern with. So introduction to DEQ. In Virginia, the state water control law authorizes DEQ to implement a variety of laws and regulations pertaining to air quality, renewable energy, land protection, and water quality and supply. Water quality is the one we'll be discussing this evening, obviously. Under this authority, DEQ is responsible for improving and protecting the Commonwealth streams, rivers, bays, wetlands, and groundwater. And what or who is DEQ protecting or trying to improve these waters for? For aquatic life, human health, and other beneficial water uses such as recreation that we'll talk about later in the presentation. So what does this mean in practice? Under the Federal Clean Water Act, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has implemented pollution control programs such as setting wastewater standards for industry. EPA has also developed national water quality criteria recommendations for pollutants in surface waters. And that's where permits tie in. EPA has authorized Virginia, specifically DEQ, to issue National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits under the Virginia Pollution Discharge Elimination System Permit. That's VPDES or VIPDES. These permits carry the weight of federal and state laws and regulations. They are enforceable under state and federal authority. As the permitting authority, DEQ is also responsible for conducting inspections of permitted facilities, determining compliance with the permits issued, and if compliance becomes a concern, enforcing terms and conditions of that permit. So this means that one of the things that DEQ does is monitor water quality. DEQ also reports water quality data to the EPA. The authority for this activity comes from the Virginia Water Quality Monitoring Information and Restoration Act, which DEQ develops EPA-required water quality reports 303D and 305B in consultation with experts from the state's universities. So here are some of those definitions and acronyms I was referring to earlier. The first one we'll go over is water quality standards. This actually has three components to it. The first is designated uses. We'll list these uses actually on the next slide. Criteria to protect those designated uses. This criteria are generally different for each designated use and for different pollutants, and include both. Numeric criteria, so for example, 0.3 milligrams of substance per kilogram of weight in fish tissue, and narrative, such as free from substances which interfere with human health. Protecting of existing uses and high quality, high value waters. So basically, whenever an activity is proposed that has a potential to affect existing surface water quality, we have a policy and framework in place to maintain and protect both the existing uses and the high quality waters. Now we'll move on to point source. So in this case, point source refers to point source pollution. This is a pollution discharged into state waters resulting from a specific source. An example would be pollution discharged from a sewage or wastewater treatment plant. If you can point at that specific source, like again, treated water coming out of a wastewater management pipe, then that is a point source pollution. That brings us to non-point source pollution. So non-point source pollution, or NPS, occurs when rain runs off of farmland, city streets, construction sites, suburban lawns, roofs, and driveways, and then it washes into our waterways. The runoff can contain harmful substances such as toxics, pathogens, excess nutrients, and sediments. It's called non-point source since the pollution does not come from a single source. This next one is total maximum daily load. This is the maximum amount of pollutant that a water body can receive without violating water quality standards. The abbreviation TMDL, and basically equates to a cleanup study. So here's a TMDL study for Blacks Run and Cooks Creek. DEQ looks at all the pollution sources in each of these water bodies' watersheds. You can see those in the orange and sort of purple-pink color there. And the last one we'll talk about right now is implementation plan, or IP, as part of the watershed restoration process, or basically trying to return a watershed to its former condition with improved water quality. IPs are developed to address non-point source pollution. IPs typically, but not always, follow the development of a TMDL cleanup study. So on this slide, we can see this is the Cunningham Creek Watershed Plan. It was developed with local stakeholders as well as Virginia Tech's Biological Systems Engineering Program. And now we'll jump into water quality, the designated uses that we referred to on the previous slide. So we have 6 designated uses for surface waters in Virginia. The first one is aquatic life. Next, we have fish consumption, public water supplies where applicable, recreation, as we mentioned, such as swimming, shell fishing, and also wildlife. The water quality standards defined the water quality needed to support each of these 6 uses. If a water body does not meet the water quality standards, it won't support one or more of these uses, and these water bodies are said to have an impaired water quality. So examples of some impaired water bodies in Virginia, 2 examples we took just because we have some pictures of them. One is the James River. So the James River is impaired due to E. coli, which is basically animal waste or poop, and sediment that gets into the water. So it should be noted that not all segments of the creeks and rivers are necessarily impacted or impacted by the same issues and for the same designated uses. So impacted segments may be less than a mile or maybe dozens of miles long. So basically what we're trying to say is the entire James River is not considered impaired for E. coli and sediment. Only segments of the river are impaired for E. coli. Next we have Hawksbill Creek. This one is also impaired due to E. coli as well. And on this map, you can see a snapshot of some impaired waterways in central Virginia area. This comes to us from Virginia's 303D list of impaired waters and from the 2002 integrated report on water quality assessments from 2015 to 2020. And here again is another shot of the 303D list of impaired waterways. So if a user wanted to, they could search the James River here and see which segments are impaired, the segment's designated uses, as well as the impaired causes. Now we'll go into water quality laws and regulations. So here we go. DEQ is mandated with protecting water quality in Virginia, and this ties back to EPA's Clean Water Act, the Virginia State Water Control Law, as well as the Virginia Water Quality Monitoring, Informing, and Restoration Act. The State Water Control Law authorizes DEQ to implement a variety of laws and regulations pertaining to water quality and water supply to improve and protect Virginia's streams, rivers, bays, wetlands, and groundwater for aquatic life, human health, and again, other beneficial uses. Under the Clean Water Act, EPA has implemented pollution control programs such as setting wastewater standards for industry. EPA has also developed national water quality criteria recommendations for pollutants in surface waters. Under the Clean Water Act, DEQ has to report to the EPA every other year describing the status of water quality in Virginia's waterways and detailing plans developed to restore those impaired waters in the Commonwealth. So the EPA is interested in which waters are impaired in Virginia, but they also want to know what DEQ plans are to fix those waters. DEQ also reports water quality data to EPA. The authority for this activity comes from the Virginia Water Quality Monitoring, Information, and Restoration Act, which directs DEQ to develop the EPA-required water quality reports 303D and 305B in consultation with experts from the state's universities. And we did want to pause here to see if there might be any questions at this point before we roll into our next segment on how DEQ protects water quality.
I think that we haven't gotten too many questions, although we did get one question here in the chat, and I just wanted to repeat our answer for the rest of the audience, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
We had somebody asking about drinking water concerns, and so we just wanted to clarify that Virginia DEQ conducts testing of surface waters across the Commonwealth, and drinking water falls under the Virginia Department of Health, and we've added a link to that answer in the questions box that takes you to that drinking water page if you'd like to check that out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate the input, and yeah, hopefully that information was helpful. Okay, so with that, we will jump into how does DEQ protect water quality. So DEQ has several programs that can be seen here on what some people call our water wheel. It includes water quality monitoring, assessments and reporting, cleanup studies and implementation, permitting, and that includes financing and other cleanup actions. And together, these programs make up what DEQ calls the Continuous Planning Process, or CPP. The primary goal of Virginia's CPP is to maintain the state's water quality standards, which DEQ achieves by monitoring, reviewing, and evaluating water quality data, limiting the discharge of pollutants from point sources, Again, those are pollutants that are entering the Virginia waterway from a single source, like a discharge pipe, from a wastewater treatment plant or something along those lines, and also promoting the implementation of control programs and practices to mitigate water quality impacts from non-point source pollutions. Again, that might be an agricultural field, it might be streets and roads, that sort of thing. Comes up from construction sites, suburban lawns, and other non-point sources. So let's jump into DEQ's continuous planning process here at Water Quality Monitoring. The DEQ professionals monitor Virginia surface waters in a variety of water bodies ranging from small mountain streams, lakes of all sizes, to large tidally influenced rivers. In the draft 2024 Water Quality Monitoring Plan, it reports that there are 1,154 DEQ monitoring stations in the Commonwealth. These monitoring stations support a number of DEQ goals. And we're going to stop there for a moment to see if we can get some participation, hopefully. And perhaps in the chat, you might be able to think of ideas of what exactly you think DEQ measures at these monitoring stations. So again, we have over 1,000 monitoring stations where DEQ staff do various water quality monitoring jobs, and we're trying to see what exactly do you think that we are looking for when we go out there and do a water quality monitoring station. So we'll just take a minute there and see if we get anything in the chat.
Yeah, keep them coming, but I see some folks are putting in some things like macroinvertebrates, temperature, levels of pollutants, pH levels. Oh, you all know all of these things. Turbidity,
yeah,
salinity. So, I'm just pretty much all the answers, they're coming in on the chat. So excellent. Thank you, everyone.
All right, a very informed audience. That's wonderful. So basically, you guys nailed it. Water quality monitoring involves collecting chemical. Oh, sorry, this is actually the map I was meant to show you about that, about some of the different water quality monitoring stations DEQ has. So there's our question. So yeah, again, we do chemical, physical, biological data is what we're gathering to assess the quality of the state's waters in order to identify sources of pollution. A good example of chemical data, you all nailed it, would be dissolved oxygen. We need to breathe air. Aquatic life needs to breathe dissolved oxygen. We talk about physical data, the obvious one, temperature. A bunch of you got that. That's great. One measure of biological data would be benthic organisms. You guys mentioned that too, which is awesome. These are the community of organisms that live on, in, or near the bottom of a river, a lake, a stream, also known as the benthic zone. So that's where the benthic organisms comes from. An example of them would be snails, worms. Some of them are very sensitive to pollution. So when we don't see them present in a water body, that's a trigger to us that there may be a water quality issue going on. And other types of water quality measurements, pH, bacteria, and nutrients. So we're doing year-round water quality monitoring, and we get funds for the monitoring activities for other entities to supplement our data in their collection efforts. This includes DEQ's Citizen Water Quality Monitoring Program. And as a side note, in this presentation, we've used citizen monitoring and public monitoring interchangeably. So sorry if I go back and forth between those, but when I say citizen monitoring or public monitoring, I'm talking about the same thing. In addition, DEQ staff also gather fish tissue data, sediment, and some other benthic data, as previously discussed. Every year, DEQ produces its annual monitoring plan, which summarizes the water quality monitoring activities DEQ will conduct, including the station location, specific conditions, monitoring frequency, and cost. Similarly, DEQ produces quality assurance and standard operating procedures to ensure that the data collected when monitoring is of the highest scientific quality. And with that, we'll go into public involvement in water quality monitoring, which we kind of mentioned on the last slide. So you are able to nominate water bodies for monitoring by DEQ. The nomination period runs from January 1st to April 30th of each year. So actually today is the last day for this cycle, but we have this cycle every year. So people interested could get water quality data now, and maybe that would give them ideas for a body that might need monitoring next year. You can apply for a grant and conduct water quality monitoring. The request for applications, again, that's a July 1st through August 30th of each year that runs. And then submit your monitoring data to DEQ. And here's a link for that. So you can go here and look at citizen monitoring, or just Google DEQ citizen monitoring. It should bring this up. Okay, so again, public involvement in water quality. We talked about other entities that basically get citizen water quality monitoring groups and individuals. This is a great way to get involved in water quality on a local level. Here are a few of the comments we've received about DEQ's Citizen Water Quality Monitoring Program from the James River Association and the Lake Anna Civic Association. They highlight how the program creates opportunities to inform the public about water quality and waterway conditions in their neighborhoods, contribute to data, educate peers and neighbors, support DEQ in fulfilling the goals of the Clean Water Act, and contribute in a meaningful way to improving local water quality. The public, again, were invited to nominate a water body. Again, today is the closing day for this cycle, but we'll have another cycle every year. And you can also look at a story map that we have at DEQ's Citizen Nominated Water Quality Story Map is available on our website as well. And now we'd like to pull you in again and get a quick idea. Again, you can put this in the chat, a simple yes, no, on whether or not you've been involved in any water quality efforts to date. Yes, no answers in the chat would be great. Might have been in Virginia, might have been in a different state, might have been yesterday, might have been 10 years ago. So.
And Kate, we have a poll up on the screen for folks to respond to. So if they go ahead and select, have you ever participated in public water quality monitoring before, yes or no? That would be great. I'm going to hand back over to Gwen here to keep running the poll here.
We have 86% have voted, so I will go ahead and close the poll and then share the responses. So it looks as though a majority of you have participated in public water quality monitoring before, so that's excellent, and thank you for what you do. Those of you who haven't before, if it's something that you're interested in, we will be talking about ways to get involved later on in the presentation. So thank you so much for participating in that poll, and I will turn it back over to Kate to continue.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so now we'll go into, now that we have, now that perceivably we're getting citizen data, it's always good to know what exactly DEQ is doing with your data, right? So there's a great variety of volunteer public water quality monitoring programs around the Commonwealth. It's important to note that public water quality monitoring data cannot be used for enforcement of permits or for permit limits. The data provided by these programs are used in several ways, depending upon the level of experience, quality assurances, and standard operating procedures in place in each program. We'll take a look at how DEQ uses this data. They classify public water quality monitoring programs into 3 levels. So first we have up here the level 1. This, they don't have any methods of ensuring the quality of a level 1 data that's collected, and or they may not be collecting data that doesn't have numeric water quality standards associated with it. This data can absolutely still be useful though. So yeah, the level 1 quality data, it's not necessarily something that can be used for larger programs, but it's definitely useful in being able to identify those water quality concerns and for education about water quality and water quality monitoring. The level 2, these sort of programs have developed standards of operating procedures and protocols to ensure data quality. Data from these programs can be used to track performance and cleanup efforts and to identify locations that DEQ may want to add into its monitoring network. Level 3 programs not only have standard operating procedures and protocols, but they are also audited to evaluate how well they follow those procedures and protocols. And data from these programs can be included in water quality assessments. So here's an example of how citizen water quality monitoring data is being used by DEQ. This table shows different monitoring projects and parameters focused on the Chesapeake Bay. The last row of the table shows citizen monitoring, and the data used from these citizen monitoring groups could be used at DEQ in the Bay designation use attainment, non-Bay criteria assessments, and for research purposes and in the development of tools. We have some volunteer groups here who are shown on the slide. These volunteers on the top picture, they are from the Chickahominy Tribe Eastern Division, and the volunteers below are from the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. And here's a screenshot of the Virginia Data Explorer, which was developed in partnership with the Chesapeake Bay Monitoring Collaborative, the Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, and DEQ. This tool is used for storing and sharing data collected by a network of citizens and non-agency groups who monitor water quality. Data collected anywhere in Virginia can be submitted to the Virginia Data Explorer. And with that, we'll move on from water quality monitoring to assessment. So as we move along the water wheel, these DEQ studies analyze data from the water quality samples we were talking about previously to determine if water quality in Virginia's waters is clean enough to support the designated uses. Again, those are aquatic life, fish consumption, public water supplies, recreation, shellfishing, and wildlife. It's as established in those water quality standards. DEQ analyzes available monitoring data, and every other year we perform a water quality assessment. Whenever assessments indicate that a water body does not meet one or more of the water quality criteria, according to the established DEQ guidelines, or fails to support a designated use, it is considered impaired and is added to the impaired waters list. Such examples we mentioned earlier include the James River, Hawksbill Creek, and Luray. And DEQ identifies the impaired water body's location on the basis of impairment, such as high bacteria counts. DEQ outlines its methods for assessing water quality, assessing waters, and consistently classifying impaired waters in a water quality assessment guidance manual. The Virginia Department of Health and some of these other institutions we have listed here, such as Virginia Energy, Department of Wildlife Resources, have also used monitoring data collected by DEQ. And now we'll move on to water quality reporting. So every 2 years, the water quality information is compiled into our 305B, 303D Water Quality Assessment Integration Report. It satisfies the requirements in the Clean Water Act and the Virginia Water Quality Monitoring Information and Restoration Act. The most published one has been printed in draft form for 2024. And this report provides a comprehensive assessment of water quality conditions and trends across the state and lists and prioritize impaired waters to focus on cleanup efforts. We also have the, shown here on the screen, the EPA How's My Waterway tool. This uses data from DEQ and other entities to create a platform that the general public can access to get information about waterways. It provides water quality on 3 levels: community, state, and now we'll move on to cleanup studies. We're going to talk about TMDLs again. That's another one you've been hearing throughout this presentation, obviously. So DEQ develops these cleanup studies, pollution diets for impaired waterways, technically referred to again as the total maximum daily load, TMDL. So we discussed that earlier, and we'll take a deeper dive into TMDLs on the next slide as well. State and federal laws require cleanup studies for all impaired waters. Once developed and with stakeholder input, cleanup studies outline the pollution reductions that are needed in order to meet water quality standards and ultimately be removed from the impaired water list, which is the ultimate goal. The development of a TMDL includes stakeholder input through a TMDL advisory group. Getting involved in one of these TMDL advisory groups is another way the public can be involved in water quality. Cleanup studies include an allocation for pollutant loads from permitted point sources, waste load allocations, and allocations from pollutant loads from non-point sources that are not subject to permitting requirements or load allocations. Breaking this down a bit, this means that we take a look at the current water quality conditions. We try to identify the sources of pollution, both point source and such as, again, a wastewater treatment plant discharge pipe, and non-point source such as streets and rooftops and agricultural fields, which are not required to have DEQ permits. And then we look at where the pollution levels or loads are and where we need them to be based on what the waterway is used for. Again, those uses might be recreational, fishing, for healthy aquatic life, etc. The waste load allocations from point sources that require a DEQ permit are also incorporated into the River Basin Specific Water Quality Management Planning Regulation by the Virginia State Water Control Board. So here we go with a total maximum daily load, TMDL. This slide can give you a visual idea of what a TMDL looks like. The Clean Water Act requires states to identify all water bodies that do not meet water quality standards. Where water quality impairments are identified, DEQ takes a lead role in developing cleanup studies, the TMDLs, to address the causes and impairments and establish a cleanup plan. TMDLs include best estimates of pollution from non-point sources, natural background sources, pollution from non-point sources, natural background sources, pollution from point sources, and a margin of safety, and even takes into account seasonal variations. While TMDL studies are the primary approach for addressing water quality impairments, Virginia has also utilized non-TMDL options such as watershed management plans to address impairments. As discussed during the previous slide, the public can get involved with TMDL cleanup studies by providing input as stakeholders. As we look at the graph on this slide, the bar on the left is the existing load and shows that the waterway might be experiencing at the time that we're looking at the data. So the portion of the blue graph above that solid black line that's labeled water quality standard, this line shows how the current conditions are exceeding the water quality standard, the area where that yellow arrow is shown. And the bar labeled allocated load to the right shows the calculated TMDL or pollution diet. So by reducing the existing load and including a margin of safety, DEQ aims to keep the allocated load at or below the water quality standard. So cleanup implementation plans. After a cleanup study is approved, implementation of any required pollutant reduction is handled through permit limits or action plans for permitted sources, point sources, and through development of cleanup implementation plans for sources not subject to any permitting or requirements, non-point sources. The purpose of a cleanup plan, implementation plan, often referred to simply as an implementation plan or IP, is to identify a suite of best management practices that, when installed by landowners, will result in improved water quality. The plans based on the cleanup study can address multiple water quality problems in a water body and identify voluntary solutions needed in addition to any necessary permit actions to eventually remove the water body from the impairment water list. Again, that's the ultimate goal, to try to get that water body off the impaired list. DEQ's non-point source program provides guidance and funding to implement these voluntary practices. Other organizations can apply for funding. Partnerships among different organizations are also eligible for funding. So if two organizations get together, they can also apply for that funding as well. And this is an IP for the Lower Rapidan River, Cedar River, Mountain Run, and Mine Run. It's currently in development for bacteria impairments with the public participation. So get in touch if you're interested in learning more about this IP. Because this bacteria impairment is mostly in a rural area, some possible management practices might include septic system improvements, taking a look at whether there are any wastewater treatment plants in the watershed. They might look also at vegetative buffers and livestock exclusion fencing, etc. It will all depend on what is being contributed, what is contributing to the issues in the specific area. So participation of local residents is very important. Part of determining what practices can actually be implemented to improve water quality involves really talking with the public and seeing what will be acceptable to them. So we definitely need to hear from people in this watershed.
Can we take a quick pause to answer a few questions we have in the chat?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And Grace and May, I'll turn it over to you to go through those questions.
This is Gwen. I can help us go through some of these questions. Let me scroll up so that I can see where they start.
So I think the first one we wanted to get answered, Brian, if you could help us out, is how often does DEQ conduct TMDL studies of a given water body?
Well, as far as a total maximum daily load, a TMDL, TMDLs are very specific. So if you have a stream or river or water body that, let's say, has a bacteria impairment, let's say elevated E. coli levels have been measured, there would be a TMDL, a loading study, if you will, of that pollutant for that particular parameter. So it would be for E. coli. Likewise, if you had an issue with benthic macroinvertebrate monitoring, I noticed somebody had put that as one of the things that maybe DEQ monitors. So if you have a poor benthic community in a stream, we would do a TMDL to look at what's contributing or causing to that impairment. And there could be a number of potential different stressors, is what we refer to it. And sometimes that might be sediment, sometimes it might be nutrients, sometimes it might be things that are not pollutants like stormwater flow or energy or scour or the degraded habitat. But where a pollutant is involved, let's say sediment or phosphorus, there would be a specific TMDL for the individual pollutant. So you might have a loading equation, a pollutant. Sometimes they're referred to as a pollution budget or a pollution diet, but there would be an equation written for each individual pollutant that is causing or contributing an impairment. So there can be a number of TMDLs for any one water body. We talked earlier about the designated uses, and aquatic life is one of the designated use. Fish consumption is a designated use. You may notice that, or have seen some of our published water quality assessment reports where we have in fish consumption impairments, and that might be due to, let's say, polychlorinated biphenyls, so PCBs, that maybe have accumulated in fish. There could be a TMDL written to address the fish contaminant, in that case PCBs, let's say. So TMDLs aren't necessarily, we wouldn't replicate necessarily the same TMDL over, but there could be a number of TMDL equations for a given water body for any parameter or pollutant contributing to impairment. It's kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. That was very informative. I think the next question, relatedly, that we have here is, how many times per year do you test surface water at the locations that are designated?
That's a great question. And there's not just one answer. We have a lot of different monitoring networks. I'll use the term networks. So it's kind of the reason why do we go out and monitor at a given location? If we're monitoring the benthic macroinvertebrates, normally we're going to do that twice a year in the spring and fall. So the frequency of something like that is less frequent than if we're monitoring for some of our stations. We're looking at long-term trends over time. And where those trend locations are, we generally monitor those once a month. It may be during the summer season or during the recreation season with E. coli monitoring in certain locations, particularly high recreation areas. We might go out weekly to measure bacteria for several months. So the frequency of monitoring really depends on the reason and purpose for why we're monitoring. I'd say, in general, many of our stations are sampled monthly. Some more, some less, but in general, you'll see we do monitoring monthly. And I want to mention as well, because this is probably worth noting, that online on our website, if you go down to our main page, if you scroll to the bottom, there's a link for GIS data and GIS portal, and in there you can find some good information. We have a data mapper where you can load different data layers. Let's see what's in your neighborhood or nearby or water body of interest. You can look at what our 2024 monitoring plan is. Are we going to be monitoring in proximity? You can look at its, the assessment results for a given water body. And also in that link, you'll see we have a dashboard where there was a question, I don't have it in front of me now, but there was a question asking about the per and polyfluoroalkylated substances, PFAS. And we've been doing monitoring for PFAS throughout the Commonwealth for starting in late 2021, early 2022, and we've been collecting data, but all our data is available on a dashboard that's publicly accessible. We update the dashboard as we get the data in. And so if you're interested in seeing where DEQ has done PFAS monitoring, that information is available on that dashboard. And I'll mention as well that we've done a lot of monitoring of surface waters for PFAS, like grab samples, where you go out and you take a sample of that, what the water flowing by at that given point in time. We refer to that as a grab sample. We've done a number of grab samples of water, of surface water, but we also are starting to look more as well as what's in fish, and particularly we tend to look at the edible fillets of fish when we do our fish tissue analyses. So we've collected fish last year. We're going to be doing that again as well this year at different river basins. We target certain river basins and we rotate around the river basins around the state. Just limited resources and trying to basically get on a rotational pattern where we cover all the river basins eventually, but it's done cyclically.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryant. I think maybe we can do 1 or 2 more questions here and then save the rest for the end, if that sounds okay. So this next question is, are the IPs enforceable and within a given time limit? And does the state have a certain time frame to bring a TMDL into an acceptable range?
So the first part of the question is an implementation plan, an IP, enforceable?
Yes, and within a given time limit.
Well, so a TMDL, and mentioning there's a couple aspects to a total maximum daily load equation. There's the equation itself, which is what what the assimilative capacity of a water body, how much of a pollutant can that water body receive or hold and still meet our water quality standards and be protective of our designated uses. And so that TMDL equation has an aspect to it, the waste load allocation, which is for point sources, the load allocation for non-point sources, and we talked about what point and non-point sources are. The waste load allocation, so the aspect that it applies to point sources, those are usually regulated discharges. So they're authorized, we mentioned the NPDS or the Virginia VPDS, the Virginia Pollutant Discharge Elimination System program earlier. A TMDL is implemented through a permit where there's a discharger involved, and those are enforceable through the permit mechanism. On the load allocation, and normally implementation plans are developed for the non-point sources because the permits are the implementing vehicle for the point sources. For the non-point sources, the load allocations, those are not regulated programs and regulated dischargers. So from the standpoint of, is it enforceable like a permit limit? The answer is no. We normally are trying to address those through incentive-based programs, if you will, through cost share and other kind of financial incentives to try and get programs in place. But the IPs themselves are not enforceable in the same manner as a permit would be.
Awesome.
And was there another part of that question?
Yeah, sort of. So the second part was, does the state have a certain time frame to bring a TMDL into an acceptable range? But I think you sort of answered it a little bit there.
Well, I think that the TMDL itself, to be a final approvable TMDL, and our TMDLs are, our State Water Control Board reviews, and EPA reviews and approves as well. It has to demonstrate that it will be, the TMDL would result in implementing the TMDL, result in meeting our water quality standards, right? And so by nature, by definition, if you will, a TMDL has to be at the point where it's approvable and it's effective. The implementation can take a while, and the TMDLs can be very complex and take many months or even years to develop. But there's not, let's say, a set times schedule that says, hey, from when a water body is first listed as impaired, you have to do a TMDL within 3 years or 5 years. We have schedules that we try to work towards, and we prioritize, given limited resources, our TMDL work. But there's not necessarily a legislative time frame. We have our own schedule and priorities that we work within, but it's not set up in, let's say, law or regulation.
Awesome, thank you, Bryant. And then I'll just do one more question, and then we'll keep it rolling with the presentation. Folks were wondering, we were talking about the monitoring sites and how many there are throughout the state, and I think the number that we mentioned was 1,145 stations. And people were wondering if that includes the volunteer monitoring stations or if that just accounts for DEQ monitoring stations.
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
I don't either.
We can follow up on that.
Yeah.
And hey, one thing I'll mention as well about the list of, let's say, I was mentioning TMDLs and schedule and priorities. a couple things. First of all, we've talked about our 305B, our water quality assessment, and the impaired waters list. We publish that through the integrated report. It's a water quality assessment integrated report. Those reports come out every 2 years. The report is actually currently out for public comment. It started later in April. It runs for 30 days. So, and within that report, our 2024 integrated report, the list of TMDL priorities is available there. So if somebody was interested in seeing our TMDL priorities, and then I think the number of 1,100 stations or 1,145, I believe that was the count of stations included, not necessarily annually, but included in our as DEQ stations in our integrated report. I believe that's correct. So that would be over a longer time period than necessarily just once an annual monitoring plan.
Awesome. Thank you.
But we'll confirm. Yeah.
Cool. We'll make sure to send that out when we follow up after the webinar with everybody. And just so folks know, the integrated report public comment period that Bryant just mentioned, the link to find that on Town Hall has just been added to the chat, along with a registration link for a conversation about the integrated report that's actually going to be held later this week if folks are interested. And with that, I think we can stop questions. Bryant, thank you so much. And we'll keep going with the presentation and come back to questions in just a little bit.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that pause. Those are some really great questions you all had, and Bryant, we really appreciate those detailed answers. So thank you all. All right, so now we'll jump back into the water wheel. So we go from building the foundation of data and plans in the continuous planning process, or the water wheel as we call it sometimes, and we can implement control measures. DEQ controls pollution that may enter or affect surface waters by employing multiple control sources, including the issuance of Virginia Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, that's a VPDES or VIPDES permits to govern the discharge of pollutants into surface waters, the issuance of Virginia Pollution Abatement, VPA permits for certain activities that don't entail discharge, such as treatment, storage, and land application of biosolids and animal agricultural waste, assistance to local governments or authorities to upgrade wastewater treatment facilities or for the installation of stormwater management facilities or best management practices through various loan and grant programs, as well as awarding non-point source pollution control grants and loans to partners such as soil and water conservation districts, planning district commissions, non-governmental organizations, and others to support incentive-based best management practice implementation by individual landowners. So here we have the success story of the Little Cub Creek. In this case, this is located in the Roanoke River watershed. Water quality data showed that this creek qualified as impaired for E. coli, and it was put on the impaired waterway list in 2006. A TMDL study found that E. coli was the impairment of the waterway. It was a result of livestock, failing septic systems, pet waste, wildlife, and certain agricultural and urban land uses, all of which were contributing to the water quality problem. Best management practices, or BMPs, were installed to address the E. coli impairment, such as 10 miles of stream exclusion fencing to keep livestock out of the creek, 139 acres of afforestation, basically converting land back to forested condition, and erosion-reducing agricultural crop practices and livestock practices. As a result, water quality in the Little Cub Creek improved over the course of a decade, and by 2016, the creek was no longer listed as an impaired waterway. So this is an example of how a creek can get off the impaired waterway list. In this case, it did take a decade. Some of them will be shorter, some of them may take longer, but this just gives you a general idea that it's not necessarily a quick and easy process. So now we're going to ask you to use the chat feature again and list off the ways that you as an individual can try to help protect water quality in Virginia. So give you all a few moments to add stuff to the chat. Here are some pictures to give you some ideas.
We want folks to respond into chat to this question, right, Kate?
Yep.
Correct.
How
Yes.
can we protect our waters, folks? Any ideas?
Looks like we're getting some in the chat. I see keep cows out of the water. Yep. Pick up pet waste. Retain stormwater for garden use. Participate in water quality testing. Clean up pet waste. Test septic. Looking at fluoridation, fertilizer or lawn. Picking up dog waste. Less toxic cleaning. Recycling. Plant riparian buffers. Talk to your neighbors. That's a good one. Yeah. These are all great. Thanks, guys. Pick up trash in your watersheds.
Fantastic. Again, these are great. You guys obviously
educate youth. Yeah, awesome.
Great. Yeah, these are all perfect and what we were hoping for. Obviously, you guys already know these, but we'll just kind of review them together. So you can keep litter and trash in the appropriate bins. Use and dispose of household chemicals properly. Pick up and properly dispose of pet waste. Participate in stream cleanup events, storm drain stenciling projects, or other community cleanup events. Follow the instructions for lawn or garden chemicals and avoid overuse of these chemicals. And this is one you guys hit on. It's maintain your septic system if you have one. The Virginia Department of Health states that the average lifespan of a septic system is 30 to 40 years, but they can last longer if they're well maintained. It's recommended that an average household septic system be inspected every 3 years by a septic service professional and that the systems be pumped out every 3 to 5 years. You can also get involved in DEQ's Citizen Water Quality Monitoring Program, as we've discussed this evening, and that includes maybe serving on TMDL Advisory Board, providing comments for public comment periods. And you guys hit this one too. Make sure you share that information with others, share it with your neighbors to get the word out about this. And this was discussed just a few minutes ago by Brian and then also by our crew at DEQ. But for those looking for a way to get involved with water quality, there's currently an opportunity for public participation. On April 22nd, DEQ released its Water Quality Assessment, the Integrated Report for public comment. This report includes information on water quality assessments, impaired waters. It describes long-term planning priorities for water quality restoration and includes a listing of waters prioritized for total maximum daily load, TMDL, or advanced restoration planning development through 2026. Again, the report can be downloaded on DEQ's website. Public comments are being received through May 22nd. As was mentioned just a few minutes ago, there will be a DEQ webinar hosted on May 2nd, so just later this week actually. It's going to be at 1 p.m. I believe that you can register for, and participants are invited to submit questions about the report during the webinar. This general notice is what you can see on the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall website, and that link has also been included in the chat previously. So our learning objectives for this evening was to just hopefully get out there and make sure that everyone has a good idea of what water quality is and why it's important. We also talked about water quality standards and designated water uses, as well as how does DEQ protect water quality and how can you help protect water quality. And with that, that's our presentation for this evening as far as the slides go. But we wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for additional questions and answers. And with that, let's see if there's any questions out there that hopefully we can tackle for you. So again, if you have those questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them.
And before we get into the questions there, Kate and Gwen and Grace, I just want to reiterate that there are some links that are getting posted in chat. Some very helpful links. The one Brian mentioned with the water quality data is in there. There's a couple of links as well that Gwen and Grace have been posting to DEQ websites. So definitely check out those websites before we go here. You can go ahead and click those and bookmark them. And what questions do you guys see there, Gwen?
So I see a question in here, why test only for E. coli and not also fecal coliforms?
Hey guys, this is Brian. I can I can jump in on that.
That would be great.
So over time, we have adopted updated or amended water quality standards or criteria. And currently we look at E. coli in freshwater systems and Enterococcus in marine systems or saltwater systems. And when we update or amend our water quality standards and our criteria, normally we are following the recommendations from EPA. EPA at the federal level has research and development in the science and does a lot of the epidemiological work to help develop recommended water quality criteria. Where we are now with the E. coli as an indicator, and I say indicator, but they are indicator organisms of pathogens in freshwater. And E. coli has been found to have a better incidence or occurrence as far as a surrogate or predictor of pathogens and indicators, more so than the total coliform or the fecal coliform. Our criteria in the early 2000s was for fecal coliform, but it has been replaced and updated over time, consistent with EPA's recommendations. So that's why we're looking at those pathogens or those parameters, E. coli and or Enterococci, as indicator organisms for pathogens in freshwater and or marine systems.
All right, great. Thank you, Bryant. Okay, so this next question is to see how Bryant does on water quality jeopardy. And if he doesn't have the answer off the top of his head, we could look it up and find it later. How many miles of impaired streams are in Virginia in 2024?
Oh boy, it's funny. I have seen that table. We have a table, a summary table in the integrated report, and I definitely should remember it. Whether I'm going to impaired river miles, so rivers, not lakes or estuaries, in the 2024 integrated report. 16,291 river miles.
Wow, that was a double jeopardy question.
Or I have the report open. Or 16% of those water bodies that we have assessed and tested.
All right, I'm impressed, Bryant. Okay, another question about the impaired water body list. How does a water body get removed from the impaired list, and how often does that happen?
A lot of good questions tonight. And, I think part of that was mentioned just a few minutes ago, that with one of the success stories. But the general rule of thumb is what gets you on the list gets you off the list, right? So if you get on an impaired waters list because of, let's say, elevated bacteria and not supporting the recreation designated use, then you would have to have your bacteria levels lower and meet that designated use, in this case, recreation. So normally what gets you on the list gets you off the list. And we have, I'm not going to know this number, but we have water bodies go on the list with each cycle, and we have water bodies that come off the list with each cycle. Normally under TMDL development and implementation, we have some success stories we'll identify. But I couldn't tell you exactly the numbers or the percentages or how often those happen. But I will put a plug in for that 2024 draft integrated report and the webinar next week. Now I'm biased, right, because I work in these programs, but very proud of the work that our teams and our staff do throughout the state, and a lot of that work is encapsulated and summarized in that integrated report. So just put a plug in for that if anybody wants to take a look or join the webinar next week.
And don't forget that registration link is in the chat. And we can share these links in our follow-up email as well if you aren't able to grab all of these great resources right now.
So we've got another question that came in, and this is related to citizen grants. So the question is it possible to bring together citizen groups monitoring both streams and reservoirs for a coordination grant award? My NGO was awarded a regular grant this year, but I see potential for expanding our reach in Southwest Virginia by collaborating with other citizen monitoring groups in our area, and one of those is a reservoir monitoring group.
So I don't have an specific answer, but I would encourage you to reach out to us, either through some of the contacts you've learned of tonight or through our website. But we do have folks that coordinate and oversee our citizen monitoring grant program, and they would be a great resource for reaching out and talking about options and scope and what would be something within scope of our grant program or not. So I would just encourage reaching out. And you're welcome to reach out to, I think anyone on the line tonight can help make that contact, or go to our website on the citizen monitoring page, and I believe there's probably a contact listed there. And it looks like it may well be citizenwater@deq.virginia.gov as an email address, but we can follow up and put that information out there for you.
Excellent, thank you, Bryant. There's another question in here, and this is one that I haven't heard before. Is DEQ responsible for assessing environmental flow requirements? Are there water allocation plans in the state of Virginia?
Lots of great questions. Hey, we do have a water supply program in DEQ, and it's not a group that I don't feel comfortable answering like the details on it, but we've had water supply planning for a number of years. Early 2000s, and particularly I think 2002, a significant drought really prompted and reinvigorated some of the water supply efforts. So there are requirements for water supply planning with a longer term time horizon, looking out on a decadal scale. And I know part of the work with our water supply planning group, we do partner with the United States Geological Survey and our own staff to maintain flow gauges throughout the Commonwealth. And I know those flow gauges are part of what's the resources used when we are looking at, drought conditions, groundwater, surface water flows, reservoir capacity, and things of that nature. So I don't know what we have let's say the regulatory authority for, but I know the planning is done. And I'm sure that on our website, and we'll double check the link, that there's some good resources and contacts so you could get to learn more about that as well.
Excellent, thank you. Well, I do see we still have a few more questions, and we have about 20 minutes left, so I will continue to read through these. The next question, is bioremediation ever implemented in waterway restoration?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I know that we have bio retention, we have biofilters, we have different things, where you may run a wastewater stream or a stormwater stream through some type of, I'll call it a filtration system, but that's a passive, but there may be a carbon source in that bed or in that filter mechanism. It could be wood chips, it could be biochar or something like that. I don't know if that is what the question's getting at, but there are remediation approaches, not necessarily in stream though, if that's what the question's getting at. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so to the participant who asked that question, if that answered your question, great. If you have something that you want to clarify, please feel free to put some clarification in the chat. We have another question. How do we use stream monitoring data collected by, so this person is asking about a specific soil and water conservation district, but in general, how do we use stream monitoring data that's collected by soil and water conservation districts? specifically using the VASOS protocol.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing the question now. How do you use stream monitoring data collected by, in this case, the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District using the Save Our Streams protocol? So the Virginia Save Our Streams network, I've been away from that for a little while, but that's generally a certain level of identification of benthic organisms, from my understanding. For the Soil and Water Conservation District, it would really be a matter of whether the organization is providing data to us and how we're working with it. I don't know the answer specifically for this particular, the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District, but for really any organization that is collecting data and wants to partner with us or share that information with us, we do have mechanisms and ways to work together, and the data can be used for different purposes. Sometimes we will use data in our water quality assessment process that we discussed earlier. But it's really with the organization that collects the data. What do they want to do with it, and what would they want us to do with it if they're going to share the data with us? We do use Save Our Streams. There are a number of different groups that use that protocol, so we do partner with groups and work with that type of information. But again, I'm sorry, but I don't know the specifics on the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District.
Great, thank you. And I see one more question in my view, and then some of my colleagues may have seen others as well. Does DEQ put signs on the rivers or bodies of water that are contaminated so people will be aware?
Yeah, that's a great question. We support, and I'm going to answer this, and I think this is correct. And I'm qualifying it to say that like who does it specifically. I think we're supportive of this. Where we have fish that have elevated levels of pollutants and could be harmful for human consumption. Normally, when there's fish consumption advisories, the Virginia Department of Health would have that authority and would be issuing advisories if they're advising to limit or prohibit consuming fish. We collect data, so DEQ and our staff, our biologists will collect the fish tissue data, we'll do the analyses on the data, we'll look at the data and the results in our integrated report, and we also share those data and results with VDH. VDH, the Department of Health, would issue any consumption advisories. Where we do have those consumption advisories, there are signs that are posted. We partner with different other state agencies, whether it's Department of Wildlife Resources or us. Those are the organizations I think of primarily that have put signs up in the past, and we tend to put it at areas that we know are popular fishing holes or popular areas where people are fishing. Sometimes they've been bilingual signs. So we do try, and in that case, post notices and support those programs. But we don't necessarily have signs issued at all areas where we have impairments.
Great, thank you. Bryant, I'm also seeing a clarification about the bioremediation question. So it says, are living organisms ever purposefully employed for decontamination in Virginia waterways? Are biological systems ever anthropogenically introduced to ameliorate pollution?
Yes, I can think of a couple examples where not in stream that I've had exposure to, but like where there's, let's say, groundwater contamination, maybe using plants, trees particularly to take up, I've been involved in the site. It's been a number of years, but it was a nutrient or a fertilizer manufacturing facility. Groundwater had elevated nitrogen levels, and they used bioremediation by really, among other things, they planted trees and having the tree roots take up the nitrogen, the excess nutrients in groundwater, and it was really very effective. I mentioned earlier different types of biofiltrations. We also have some bioreactors, that's the term that we are exploring, and this is really through our Chesapeake Bay program, but for some legacy groundwater nitrogen, and this is over in the Shenandoah Valley where we're doing some work. Virginia Tech and some other partners are helping lead this, but installing bioreactors, which are really running emergent springs. So think of artesian wells, where you have groundwater springs coming from to the surface from the ground. And in that area downstream from where the springs emerge, putting in a bioreactor. So they're filled with wood chips as a carbon source, but to basically take up the nitrogen. And these flow through these reactors. There's a certain amount of contact time with the water with these wood chips, and then they discharge from the bioreactor into the stream. And it's a very, in some ways, a very simple system, but because you're utilizing nature, if you will, and it's a passive system, but it's very effective. So I have seen some exposure, some examples. I'm not sure if this is getting at exactly what the questioner is asking, but these are some new approaches that have been developed, have been applied, or some cases are being developed currently.
Great, thank you. And we've got another question related to groundwater testing. So the question is groundwater testing being done? And if so, is there a chart available of spots tested? Can people request groundwater testing?
The programs that we're discussing tonight, and with not entirely with DEQ, because we do have some groundwater work and testing, and we certainly do in certain programs where there's groundwater contamination, we address that. But from the aspect of drinking water and well water, whether it's a community system or private wells and groundwater, that really falls under the authority and the domain of the Department of Health. I know it was mentioned earlier that for drinking water and public water supplies, we really the Department of Health is the agency that has primary responsibility and authority. So as far as testing or any recommendations for testing or even thresholds against which to compare drinking water against, really would refer to the Virginia Department of Health, the Office of Drinking Water.
Okay, great. I think that we have gotten most of the questions. We do still have some questions in our list, but some of them are about specific areas or specific water bodies, and so those are questions that we will follow up with folks about later. So we're going to work on wrapping up here. We have 10 minutes or so, and before we move on to our kind of final reminder about our other educational webinars that we have coming up, we have a couple of polls that we wanted to just launch really quickly so that we can gauge how useful this was for you, because we do want to make sure that the webinars that we are presenting to you are the kinds of things that you want. So I'm going to ask Kevin to go ahead and launch. It's the third poll in the list, and we'll go through polls number 3, 4, and 5.
All righty, here we go, folks. Let's go ahead and launch the first poll on your screen. How much have you learned about what DEQ does to monitor and protect Virginia's waters? Go ahead and select one option here, and I see a couple of votes coming in already. Let's see if we can here they go. Everybody getting their votes in now, almost up to 50%. Let's see if we can get that up a little higher before I close it off. No wrong answers on this one, folks. Just go ahead and go with your gut. How much have you learned about what DEQ does to monitor and protect Virginia's waters? Wonderful, up around 80%. Fabulous. Good job, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go ahead and share those results with everybody. So you'll see Gwen, Danielle, and Kate here, Brian. Looks like 47%. So they have a much better understanding of the basics. Some people are already very familiar with it. And not surprising. I still don't understand many things. You know, I've been with DEQ going on almost 20 years, and there's still things I don't understand. There's a lot of complications with this stuff. So that's not surprising. So thank you for answering that one. Let's go ahead and launch the next one. And that one's on your screen now. Which of the following are you likely to do now? And this is a multiple choice select all that apply. So feel free to check them all, or one, or more than one. Go ahead and get your responses in here to this second poll. And then we have a third one coming right on the heels of it. So let's see if we can get your votes in. Appreciate your responses, folks. It really makes it a little bit more interesting and engaging for us when you respond to the polls. You guys are wonderful. Look at this, up around 70% voted already. Excellent. Nice, excellent. All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and close this poll in 3, 2, 1. And let's go ahead and share those results with you. All right, so which of the following you're likely to do now? Use the data tools to learn more about water quality. That's excellent, around 60%. Find an opportunity for public water quality monitoring. Excellent. And taking actions in daily life. Fabulous. Any comments on this one from our presenters or DQ staff? Any comments on this particular one, or should I move on to the next poll?
Looks awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It is great. Good job. And here's the next one. This is our last poll, so let's see if we can get this up around 90%. Would you attend a webinar on more advanced water quality topics? I know I would. You know, every time I join one of these things, I learn more about what we do here at DEQ. It's just incredible. It's so deep and intricate. All right, folks, we're up around 75%. Let's see if we can get that a little higher, bounce around 80. Oh, wonderful, 81%. Let's get a couple more votes in here. What do you think? Would you attend a webinar on more advanced topics? All righty, looks like we've up around 85%. Oh, that's fantastic. 87%. Fantastic, folks. Let's go ahead and close that poll, and I'll share those results with you. Thank you so much for responding to those things. So it looks like, you know, it's a half and half kind of. What's the topic? That's what I really want to know before I commit to this question. But definitely looks like there is some interest in some further webinars on water quality topics. So excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and hide the polls now and take you back to the slides for the closeout.
All right. Kevin, thank you so much for doing that. Kate, do we want to advance to the last slide?
Yeah, absolutely. So this evening's water quality webinar, it officially kicks off DEQ's educational series. Coming up on July 2nd, DEQ will be having its next webinar in the educational series. This one will be focused on ambient air quality monitoring in Virginia. Other upcoming DEQ educational webinars will be on topics such as DEQ 101, we're targeting that for sometime in August, DEQ tools and resources, that one will be October, and then as well as pollution prevention, hopefully in December. So air quality monitoring seminar is locked in on July 2nd. The other ones, we're still moving with them, but we're hoping for August, October, and December. And we also have here an educational series survey. This is just if you could let us know if you're interested to basically tell us what you are interested in learning more about from DEQ. So if you want to take a QR shot of that, please feel free to fill out that survey. It'd be very helpful to us. But we thank you so much for this survey, or for this presentation, for everyone staying tuned. And if I can get back on here. Just thank you again for your time tonight. We hope the presentation has been useful, that everyone walks away with some little kernel of knowledge that they might not have been aware of before. This presentation is being recorded, and so we'll work on getting that recording rolled out so you can review it as needed or share with other people. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. We look forward to seeing you again, hopefully at the air quality monitoring webinar on July 2nd. So Gwen, did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or?
Well, I will just remind folks that if you had a question that did not get answered, we will be going through the questions later and following up with people with the contact information that you provided at registration. And so we will try to make sure that you get all your questions answered. It looks like Grace has put a link into the chat if you want to grab that. If you weren't able to get the QR code to the survey, you can grab that link in the chat. And I think with that, we will go ahead and close out the webinar. And again, thank you so much for being here this evening, and we hope to see you in a future webinar. Good night.